weeks ago on my Facebook page, Home Educating the Mad Lads, a discussion was started about should, in England or the UK, should we use the term homeschooling or home education? And I wanted to do this video since then, but I kept thinking I can't do a video based on what people have said on my blog. But I'm not directly quoting anybody, I'm just taking from it what's made me think, and I will never, if somebody puts anything personal on my blog page, I will never then discuss it in a YouTube video. But also be aware that my Facebook page is a public page, so whatever you write on there, even though I might not spread it about, it's on there for anybody to see. But I'm not directly quoting anybody, I'm not giving out anybody's name, I'm just they're all valid points on both sides of the argument. Should we say homeschooling in the UK, should we say home education in the UK? So I'm just reiterating some of the points in a roundabout way to do this video. I use both terms. I say home education and homeschooling. I use homeschooling more because for me as a blogger it's more inclusive. I think that people who are new to home education search homeschooling or homeschool UK, because that's what I did. When I was looking into it, I didn't put into the search bar home education because I wasn't familiar with the term. I put in homeschool UK or homeschool. Also, the internet's a worldwide thing. Believe it or not, only a small percentage of my followers are from England or the UK. The rest of them are from other parts of the world or America. And in America they say homeschooling. So for me, homeschooling is just a more inclusive term. However, I understand both sides of the argument on this. The only thing I will say is that some people can be really aggressive with it. Especially with new people. I mean, one of the people who commented on this blog post, and I've heard this before and I've experienced it myself, said that when they were new to it, they were still saying homeschooling, and they got a bit of abuse in the home education groups on Facebook or wherever for using the wrong term. Just be kind. Doesn't matter what term they're using, especially if they're new to it and they're not really aware of the correct terminology. Just be kind, because you can very easily put people off, people who are a bit tentative anyway because they're new to it. Just be kind. They're not daft, they'll learn what the terminology is and then they'll pick the one they want to use. Also, I'm not really one at picking out what people say. You'll never see me share a meme where it says 20 things to say other than be careful to your child, or 20 things to say other than did you have a good day to your child. I think there's far too much analysing and censoring up what people say, apart from abusive things obviously, to parents who are just trying to do a good job. I'm not going to sit there and think, oh, I must say 20 other different things other than be careful. But anyway, sorry, it just makes me angry. That was one of my pet hates. So I'm not one for picking what people say. However, distance learning, that does hack me off a bit when people call it homeschooling, because it's not. It does make people think they're doing the same as what I'm doing, because people have been, you know, when the school's shut because of COVID, the parents round here, some of them have said to me, oh, I couldn't do what you do, I couldn't do what you do. Oh, it was so hard them few weeks homeschooling. And I'd say to them, look, you weren't homeschooling, you weren't doing what I'm doing. You were distance learning. You had a school on your back, sending you work all day, every day, telling you what to do, telling you you've got to get it done. That's not what I'm doing. So sometimes the terminology does matter, because when people go, oh, I couldn't homeschool because it was a disaster, or oh, I couldn't homeschool because it was dead hard, that's not what they were doing. They were distance learning, and people thinking that homeschooling doesn't work because they've tried and it doesn't work, and it makes people feel more negatively towards it, more likely that they should be banned and stuff, when that's not actually what they were doing. They were doing distance learning. So the terminology does matter sometimes. I'm just saying I'm not dead hot on it. I'm not. So I keep looking down because I made a note because I don't want to mess this up. So one person's argument was, Homeschooling is when the LA, the local education authority, send a tutor to the home because your child is too ill or excluded, or homeschooling is the American term. Somebody else said homeschool makes you think you replicate, the image it puts in your head is that you replicate in school, that you do in school at home, which is not what home education is. I mean, what I do looks nothing like school, for instance. However, somebody else said, look, it's all very well picking it apart, but where does it all end? I mean, yeah, remove the school part of homeschool because you're not doing anything like school, but you might as well say, or remove the home bit as well, because home education doesn't always happen at home. You're out and about doing things. So where does this picking the terminology part end? Although I do get that homeschool puts in the idea in your head that you've got little desks at home and you're doing school. But everybody does it differently, don't they? I don't think there's one particular term that's going to encompass everything and every way that anybody does it. Somebody's always going to find a problem with whatever term, I think. Someone who helps, there's an organisation, but because I'm trying not to say, oh, she said that and he said that, I'll not say, but somebody who's got an organisation that helps home educating families when they get into trouble with the LA, or in a dispute with the LA, I should say, not in trouble, because that makes it sound like you've done something wrong when they haven't, but in a dispute with the local education authority. They said there was a case where the family kept saying there was homeschooling in the correspondence to the LA. So the LA was thinking there was replicating school, which means, you know, scheduled curriculum, desks, all the rest of it. But what they were actually doing was home educating, which looked nothing like school. So there was crossed wires. The LA were like, well, are you providing a suitable education then? Because you say you're homeschooling, but you're not doing this X, Y, and Z. When in actual fact there was providing an adequate education. It didn't look anything like the LA thought it would look like, because it wasn't homeschooling, it was home educating. And the person who helped them said that all that trouble would have been avoided if they had just used the correct terminology. Now, I think with the local education authority, the LA, you've got to know your rights to the letter in case they try and overstep the remit anyway. And I think you've got to be so precise in what you write and so wordy in what you write so they can't twist anything against you. But that's the same with anything that's official. So just use your common sense with it, I think. And maybe the terminology doesn't matter, you know, day to day between yourselves, but maybe it matters with the authorities. What am I saying that, but sorry, I'm just looking. Oh, somebody else said a Google search, if you put in home education, it's going to come up with English stuff, whereas if you put homeschooling, it's going to come up with American stuff. And American stuff can be misleading because the rules aren't the same as what they are in the UK. That's true, but I have to say that normally in my titles I'll put homeschool and I'll put home education so that they both come up, because I know people are going to search homeschool, they're not going to search home education as much. And also, you know, if you what I find the American things really helpful, and I'm not daft. I can take out the things that aren't relevant to my country and my country's rules. So again, it's common sense, isn't it? But I suppose the more bloggers in England and the UK use the term home education, the higher that's going to go up on the Google thing, so that it's more likely to come up if you search that. But at the moment, I know people are searching homeschool more than home education. Oh, somebody else made this point, and I thought this was quite interesting because I didn't realise this, but it's true. When the media in the UK are doing articles and news parts and stuff about home education, if they're being positive, they'll use the term home education, and if they're being negative, they'll use the term homeschooling. And I never noticed that before, but it's true when you think about it. If it's a positive piece, they'll say home education, home educating. But I think that's because if it's a positive piece, they've listened to the family they're talking to, so they've picked up the terms that the family's using. Whereas if it's a negative article, they've just twisted whatever they want out of what the family said, and they've just not really listened. So I think that's why. Because they know nothing about it, they're using the term homeschool because they've not really listened to the family, because they was always going to paint them as unsuitable parents anyway. Somebody else said, and I agree with this, But like I say, you know, I agree with all the points. Somebody said part of the freedom to educate the way you want to is to be able to use whatever term you want, and that's kind of my stance on it. I'm going to do what I like, I'm going to say what I like, but like I say, you've got to have common sense when it comes to authorities. You know, you may think, oh, I'll say whatever term I like in your day-to-day life, but if saying the right term is going to help you with the authorities, then do that. But yeah, I just think there's enough attack on free speech as there is. I'm going to use whatever term I like. I nearly swore then. But like I say, I understand all the points in this. I'm just explaining why. So let me know what you think. Do you use the term homeschool or home education? Have you ever come across someone who's been incredibly aggressive about what term you should use? Do you think people should be, not aggressive, but do you think people should be pushing forward that you've got to use a certain term because it helps and it stops people thinking it's, you know, all different to what it actually is? But if you're new here, you won't know this. I'm a traveller, and people, not always, but people who aren't travellers will always, even though we have different names, traveller, new age traveller, circus people, showman, that's them that work on the fairs, showman, even though we all have different names, because people see us all the same, so it all loops into one, think we're all the same, which we're not. So even though we have got different terms, people still think we're all the same. I understand this argument that use the term home education instead of homeschooling, because homeschooling makes people think that we're doing this, this and this, when we're not, we're doing this, this and this. But I think people who aren't interested in knowing the difference are going to just lump us all into one anyway, like they do with travellers. But I don't know. It's given me a lot to think about, and I see both sides of the argument, which is why I wanted to put it on here for people who haven't been on my Facebook page and haven't seen it. I understand both sides. I don't think there's any need to be aggressive about it, and I don't think there's any need to make a big deal of it when people think different to you on it. But I'll probably keep using both terms. But let me know, which term do you prefer? Do you think we should have different terms, or do you think we should all just say homeschooling and be done? And a lot of my followers are from America, so if you're not from the UK and this all seems a bit daft to you, then let me know. Or if you see the point and wish it was the same in your country, let me know. I'm going to go now. I've got a hole in my trousers, can you see it? What? Oh! Like you wanted to see that. I'll see you next time with a brand new video.